What's up, guys? Running it back with another replay for you. We've got a Khorne versus Grand Cathay showdown from Outer Region's most recent tournament. This is definitely a wild match, so really want to show this one off. I hope y'all enjoy it. I think you will. It was certainly one that had me losing my mind at various points during it. So we've got a Shugengan Lord up in the air with the double Alchemists. Now the reason they're brought here with, just the Mastery of the Elemental Winds ability of theirs is, one, they've got magical attacks. They're pretty decent at, like, fighting bloodletters and stuff like that. They can actually do some good damage to them. But really the reason that you bring them is they give that Mastery of the Elemental Winds to the Shugengan Lord, whose spells suddenly become just much better. Roflin's coming in here with Storm of Shadows, which is a great spell. I mean, really long range, good duration, pretty short cooldown, really cheap on the Winds of Magic. And you can see that intensity being raised to 130% means that it goes from a 45% slow to 58%. So that can be pretty punishing, and you'll see if Roflin's able to make that work. Ancestral Warriors don't get the benefit of the Mastery cast, I believe. I don't think it gives them extra duration on the field. That'd be pretty cool. That would be something to maybe implement from CA, honestly. Summons in Domination mode are nice, but I feel like they could get a little bit of a touch-up, maybe. But, I know that Conquest and Land Battles players probably don't want to see the return of the summons cheese. I think we can all remember back in the day, maybe, when there were literally just summons being spammed out onto the field and there was no hard cap duration on them. They just literally slowly crumbled out over the course of a game, and it was basically just free units. That wasn't really super fun. But yeah, there's only two uses of that. Mostly it's going to be a Storm of Shadows cast. Grand Cannon, Fire Rain Rocket, Iron Hail Gunners, and lots of Jade Warriors with some Peasant Spears, couple Halberds mixed in. That's going to be it for Grand Cathay. Peasant Horsemen for the first summon, and I'm going to be going and sending my Skull Cannon to hide in the woods here. Seeing that there's a cannon and a Fire Rain Rocket, I know I'm going to have to deal with that eventually. Really just don't want to take any free damage on it. They've got pretty bad leadership, so being careful with them is not a bad thing to do. Valkia pops Demon Shield, does take a little bit of damage, but gets a little bit more in return, man. Valkia is so good. Very good at killing the Shugengan Lords, too. So Roflin's going to have to be very on top of his micro to avoid taking the worst of it from Valkia. Valkia landing in here, getting some good attacks on those Peasant Horsemen as they scream across, and the Fire Rain Rocket really starting to lay waste to my my poor Marauders. Not hitting the most rockets, but getting some pretty consistent damage nonetheless, and a really good angle here for the cannon to shoot down, getting some really nice damage on those poor Marauders. And the Cultists and the Marauders moving up to the number 3 to capping the number 2. Moving up my Chaos Warrior here. Most of my army is Marauders with a couple of Exalted Bloodletters. I forgot to point these guys out, but they're hiding in the trees here. One of them on a really wide flank. I was going to use it to creep up through the trees and then get on the number 3 if there wasn't anything over here. But seeing that there's artillery pieces, they're going on a bit of a secret agent quest, and fortunately being out here and no summons coming out of the Vanguard, they're actually pretty safe moving up right now. The other Exalted Bloodletter just hiding in the trees, waiting for maybe a little bit of an answer to the artillery there in a moment. Don't really have much of an opportunity here. Valkia landing to get after the Alchemists, while the Chaos Warriors of Khorne take it on the nose, man. They get hammered by these Peasant Horsemen, but now that they've taken the actual charge itself, getting some really nice damage in return on these Peasant Horsemen, and honestly, not the worst thing in the world. The damage that they've taken here, just about 25% of their HP, and they've done about half the health off of these Peasant Horsemen here. And seeing that these guys all got tied up in combat here, I get some Fleshhounds out. They get on the rear of the Peasant Horsemen here, while the Exalted Bloodletters collapse in on the flank, and rapidly running out of room for these Peasant Horsemen. They take some serious poundings here from the Flesh Hounds, but a really nice Ancestral Warrior Summon coming in here, getting in on top of all of these targets. These Flesh Hounds, I almost charged directly into them. These guys, they're a little bit too caught up now. Really nice use of the Ancestral Warrior Summon. Getting their hands on a 750 gold unit, and they're going to rip them apart in no time. Excuse me. Having the good melee attack here. They've got that good bonus versus large of 20, all of its AP. They've got magic attacks and frostbite, which basically just means that there's nowhere to go for the Flesh Hounds. They were pretty caught up with a Storm of Shadows in the first place, so they weren't really following up as well on the Peasant Horsemen as they could. Then to get frostbitten on top of that, they really just didn't have a chance. But having said all that, Valkia gets a really good isolation on the Alchemist. Absolutely rips one of them apart, which is really nice for me. It's going to mitigate some of the strength of the spell mastery. And, just a real short gripe. It doesn't show the effect of the mastery of the elemental winds here on the Shugengan Lord, but if you go over to the tooltip, you can see now that the intensity is down to 115% instead of that 130 from earlier, which is really nice for me. Onyx Crowman, the Empress's Crowman specifically, actually coming out, and landing on top of my Marauders, ripping those guys apart. My infantry so far have been struggling out here, but Chaos Warriors get up, they're decently healthy, and they're all over these Jade Warrior Halberds doing some good damage, and the Cultists, man, ripping apart these Peasant Spears, and they're going to get on top of their own Jade Warrior Halberd now. My opponent kind of capping up here pretty nicely, but I am maneuvering around some Exalted Bloodletters. They're going after the other Jade Warrior Halberd that's out here on the field, collapsing in on them before they can get focused down by the Fire Rain Rocket, which is noticed finally. The Exalted Bloodletters that have come out. Some Peasant Horsemen trying to respond to these guys, but Exalted Bloodletters have actually as good of a charge bonus as Peasant Horsemen do, and with the superior weight of numbers, these guys are actually going to really rip apart the Peasant Horsemen here. You can see they're really good micro, actually, from Roflin with the Peasant Horseman. It gets a charge, and then immediately disengages, but the charge bonus from the Exalted Bloodletters coming into play, like, quickly enough that these guys just immediately get broken, lose half their health, get pushed back. Furies land on top of the cannon crew, do a really good job of shutting it down. Gonna definitely lose these guys, but they have paid for themselves, just killing off that cannon crew, shattering them, doing really good damage against them, dropping the artillery piece here, and trying to run away with the Fire Rain Rocket crew, but the Exalted Bloodletters just screaming in after them, not giving them any space, and they are much faster. They have 38 speed against 30, so that's actually a pretty good situation for them to catch, actually. It's about the break point for speeds in pursuing. Do take a lot of damage on a lot of my units here, but the Chaos Warriors are still holding in here, just heroically holding, honestly. They're down and have taken quite a bit of damage. You can see their melee attack and their frenzy are still active, so they're definitely doing pretty good work against these Jade Warriors, and they've almost paid for themselves here, despite taking some pretty seriously disadvantageous fights in terms of numbers. Just giving me some really good opportunities here. I do charge the Peasant Long Spears with my Flesh Hounds. Maybe not the best decision in the world, but I do believe that they were unbraced. I thought they were, at least, but they didn't take the most damage on the charge. I do probably need to disengage from this fight quickly. Really good Storm of Shadows here. Gets on top of the Marauder Horsemen of Khorne. They take a lot of damage. These Peasant Horsemen out here, you're probably wondering why they're running away from Peasant Horsemen. They got terror routed by the Ancestral Warriors, funnily enough. The Ancestral Warriors summon, the last one of those, offline now. They were fighting in here against the Exalted Bloodletters and doing some pretty good damage, but you can see how beleaguered they are, actually. That's all thanks to the Exalted Bloodletters. The Exalted Bloodletters are just beating the absolute living hell out of these Ancestral Warriors and the Peasant Long Spears, and they're fighting the Empress's Crowmen now, taking the world on in their current state. Really doing some nice damage. And the Bloodletters, they're chasing down some Iron Hell Gunners. The other Iron Hell Gunner out here You can see how much damage they've taken, but no entity kills. You might be wondering why. Thanks to Sleipnir. Sleipnir actually broke their leadership with how strong it is against those type of units. Their really tight formation and low armor means that you basically get the full effect out of the 60 damage, and that basically puts all of these Iron Hail Gunners down to like 1 HP. That's like the perfect target to use them on. You can break units like this with the mediocre leadership they have. Then you can just follow up with literally anything and just chase them off the field. Exalted Bloodletters out here, man. They did, so they killed the Fire Rain Rocket crew. I believe they fought off a few more peasant horsemen trying to get after them, and now they're just chasing stuff down. I was gonna send them after the Iron Hail Gunners, but my position on the battlefield is starting to look really bad, honestly. There's a couple of Jade Warriors that moved up through the trees here. You can see a third one moving up as well to secure this number 3. The Marauders, they didn't really pay for themselves. They took a lot of damage from the cannon and the Fire Rain rockets. My infantry have gotten punished really hard this entire game, and I have killed those artillery pieces, but at the end of the day, my opponent's got a lot more mobility out on the field than I do, and I'm really relying right now on what remains of these Exalted Bloodletters. You can see, man, despite fighting all those peasant long spears and everything, they've gotten some pretty decent value here. 266 kills, 1,300 value. They're going to get that last little bit of damage on the Onyx Crowman. Not giving these guys any free damage. And a Skull Cannon shot coming from downtown. Finally getting this guy online. I did kind of forget about him in the trees back there. You know, I was hiding him because of the cannon. You know, cannons just hard counter Skull Cannons. But now that even in the fourth quarter here, you can see that the tickets, you know, we've been playing and the battle has been going for quite a while now, but tickets are pretty low for both sides, and my opponent's really starting to get a bit of a triple cap on me. This Skull Cannon is going to be very annoying in the late game. There's really nothing to do damage to it now. Iron Hails are all pushed to the other side of the battlefield and on the verge of routing anyways. Grand Cannon offline. So, just able to get in here and start doing some really good work. Microing to get good side shots with the Skull Cannon, very important. These things can do some really good work in that regard. Chaos Knights do come out. They take a pretty bad fight, but I did really want to like hammer home and try and get a little bit of damage done and maybe pull some of my opponent's units out of position. The Emperor's Crowmen actually land on the remains of this Chaos Warrior. Chaos Warrior is actually going to fight pretty efficiently against these guys. They are on the verge of breaking, though. Probably going to be leaving the battlefield shortly. And the Shugengan Lord does go after the Skull Cannon, gets a little bit of damage, but Skull Cannon's like decent enough at being disruptive and just flying about the battlefield with its disruptive patterns that it's not too terribly afraid of finding a character like this. Doesn't have any AP to speak of, really. This thing's got crazy armor, so it's pretty resilient against duelist characters of that specific type. Using the tattered remains of my Marauder Horsemen, going after some fleeing Iron Hail Gunners, doing a really good job of breaking both of the Iron Hails here. These guys probably not going to recover their leadership in time. This one outright shattered. Getting chased down by some peasant horsemen, but getting a little bit of damage in against those guys before they go off. Just about paying for themselves there. And, man, oh man. The Exalted Bloodletters finally rallying back to the point. They have been on a odyssey. I mean, they started all the way off on this side of the battlefield, running all the way through the trees here, getting on top of the Fire Rain rocket. They've come out here, they've killed, they killed some peasant horsemen, they've killed some halberds that were rallying over here, and now they've come all the way back. I mean, they're basically Magellan circling the globe at this point. The goal here at the end of the game is to have them back in their starting position. Not really, but you know, they basically could do it at this point. These guys have been world beaters, and they've got lots left to give. They're getting charged down by some Jade Lancers right now. Jade Lancers are a pretty good answer to these guys, but in response, I pop Relentless Rage on them. Relentless Rage is very oftentimes a very difficult ability to spot going off on the battlefield. It's got decent duration of 20 seconds, and that's really all you need for a really high DPS unit like this to get its work done. It's very good at answering shock cavalry, trying to like finish these guys off. Your opponent like sends them in. They're like, oh, this unit's really low health. You know, I can get some free damage in there, crumble them out, and do really nice work. You pop Relentless Rage on these guys. They survive the worst of the impact damage. They don't lose any models, and then they just grind out your opponent. Look at the damage that they did to those Jade Lancers. Just holding here, man. Doing a great job. Love these guys. They've been absolutely vital to my success on the battlefield so far, and they're really saving my ass here. You can see, now that I've got some, now that my opponent is trying to, like, fight across the battlefield, and I've actually gotten some more infantry out on the field. I got some Marauders here, supporting the Skull Cannon. I've got a Marauder moving up to the #1 objective, and my opponent is really having to commit a lot of non-AP units to try and kill off my Chaos Knights. These Chaos Knights, they've been struggling pretty badly. My opponent's been popping Storm of Shadows on them. They've been getting hammered by Peasant Horsemen, but they're occupying so much attention on the battlefield. I mean, just look how many units are over here. You've got Iron Hill Gunners, you've got 2 Peasant Horsemen, you've got Peasant Longspears, you've got Jade Warriors, you've got more Peasant Horsemen. It's given me time to develop out some Minotaurs, develop out some Marauders, develop out some Furies, and all of the units that I've got here now. Despite the Chaos Knights really not paying for themselves, I have the perfect units out on the field now to just rip apart the Iron Hill Gunners, who are the best answer to these Minotaurs. These Minotaurs did take a pretty nasty volley from them, but they're shut down. They're going to get ripped apart by those Furies now. Chaos Knights chasing off the Peasant Horsemen, doing a really good job of damaging those guys up. Gonna be able to get in here after this and get after the Peasant Longspears to support the Furies and the Minotaurs getting a really good jump on these Peasant Horsemen, ripping them to shreds. In a really nice position now to turn their attention onto the infantry. Now that they've got a little bit of support from some Furies, buffering out a lot of the damage from the spears. Valkia has found the Shugengan Lord on this objective as well, doing some nice damage to her. Peasant Horsemen trying to get out here, getting on top of the Marauders. Marauders chasing down a little bit of something there. And gonna get back on that #1 objective here in a minute. Got another Marauder there. And look at this, man. The Exalted Bloodletters with 37 models and 1300 HP, 1800 value. Still going. They're helping the Chaos Knights now. They're gonna go after the Jade Warriors here. Excuse me. Jade Warriors, pretty good unit, but get hard countered by the Exalted Bloodletters. Chaos Knights can do some pretty good damage to them as well. These guys just have really good weapon strength. They've got, like, decent AP on there. Like, 18 armor-piercing damage is actually quite a bit for a cavalry unit. So, they're, like, not the best thing against armor, but they're not terrible. And over here, man, I haven't gotten to really talk about these guys, but these cultists have been absolutely vital to my success this game. They have been fighting on this middle objective the entire game. They have helped lock down halberds, peasant spears, kill entire units of my opponents off, and just be so viciously irritating. They're killing the alchemists now. My opponent did resummon the one that got killed in the early game. And they came in here trying to finish off my cultists, who you can see pretty beat up now. One of them basically on death's bed, but the other cultist with, you know, about a third of his HP left. And they're all over this alchemist, just absolutely beating down these foot characters. And these cultists are really good at killing a lot of the different, like, foot characters that are available to a lot of different factions. These guys actually bully Noctilus, which is pretty funny. There's a lot of matchups where these guys are pretty much an auto-include, and even with your opponent planning for them, they can still be just brutally efficient at what they do. And right here, proving that in spades, just, as I said, killing a lot of infantry, clearing out foot characters, killing some cavalry. I mean, you can just see the carnage on this middle objective, man, and they were a big reason for that. Skull Cannon, haven't really been showing it off, but you can see all of these Jade Warriors and the Peasant Long Spears, they've been suffering under the weight of the disruption from the Skull Cannon. 85 kills on this guy, doing some pretty good work. Shooting God Lord, routing and running for her life there. 63 HP. Roflin is going to call it there, but it was a really close game from Roflin. We both got to put points in the game where we almost broke each other's backs. And fortunately for me, the lack of any like hard-hitting AP to answer those Chaos Knights drew so much of his mobility attention that he really wasn't going after the cheap infantry that I was pushing up. Maybe if he had been going after the Marauders I was bringing out in the back line here, with the Peasant Horsemen hammering those guys down, he would have been able to do a little bit better, but, you know, Khorne is pretty fast. You know, I do have, you know, Furies and Flesh Hounds, which are really good against Peasant Horsemen, to go after those guys. So it's a little bit of maybe fool's gold doing that particular style. Really, it just came down to the Exalted Bloodletters just being insanely strong. I mean, we're going to go in here, we're going to check them out, but you can see, these Exalted Bloodletters, there's still some of them left. All of the remaining ones need to immediately be given, like, I don't know, some kind of extra, they need to be given next level status. They need to all become heralds, personally, in my opinion. That's how good their performance was this game. You know, you can't ask for more from a elite infantry tool. Both of them paying for themselves. This one I summoned back out at the end. You may have seen them as I was scrolling over the battlefield, giving one last little look over at the state of it. But, yeah, those Exalted Bloodletters, completing their circumnavigation of the battlefield just about, man. 2,000 value even on these guys. 1393 on the other one. More than making up for some of the more lackluster performances from the Marauders here. You know, but, you know, these guys, they soaked up a lot of artillery fire, which is pretty nice. And gave my more expensive infantry free reign up to the objectives. Fire Rain Rocket, you know, got some good kills, but not the most damage value in the world. And Grand Cannon, 666 damage. Pretty funny considering what they're going up against, a bunch of demons. Also not quite paying for itself, though, unfortunately, for the forces of Grand Cathay. Shugengan Lord did really good controlling the battlefield with those Storm of Shadows casts, and the Ancestral Warriors did pretty nicely for her, too. Could probably tack on, like, you know, maybe 800-900 value on for all the value that the magic got on her, which is about paying for her, I believe. Alchemists, you know, giving that extra spell mastery is nice and all, but I really think that maybe you'd be better served bringing something other than these alchemists. I mean, I did a pretty good job of killing one in the early going, and the cultists just ripped them apart at the end. They didn't really get to fight any bloodletters or anything, because my bloodletters were elsewhere being very disruptive, just being flanking units. One did take middle objective fights, but the other one just doing whatever the hell it decided to do, basically. And that's how you know you're in a pretty good position on the battlefield, when you can get away with stuff like that. And it's kind of hard for Cathay to answer the Bloodletters. I mean, you saw what they did to the Peasant Horsemen on the charge. You send Jade Lancers after them. They do a little better. They do a little more damage, but they still don't really win that fight. And Onyx Crowman, you just have to commit, like, everything under the sun to get rid of one Exalted Bloodletter. So I really do feel like bringing two is kind of a break point for Cathay in this matchup. And that's kind of really important to figure out for your mains, your main faction, is knowing what units are most efficient so that you can just bring them, set them and forget them, and just dominate your opponent. Flesh Hounds didn't do too hot. They got answered pretty efficiently. They got locked down by Ancestral Warriors, one of them, and then the other one kind of got caught up in the middle there. A really good Storm of Shadows got them, and then they got rear charged as they were fighting the Peasant Long Spears, so really bad micro on my part using those guys. I find that Fleshhounds get overestimated a lot by people who might look at them and see them as just being some overwhelmingly dominant unit on paper. And they can certainly do really good work in this matchup. They do a really good job of answering Iron Hails. They provide a little bit of mobile cap weight. They're pretty good against Jade Lancers and Peasant Horsemen, but they're pretty squishy. And they don't get the same benefits of running away from combat that Furies do. Furies just get away with stuff for free because of the jank in the way that flying melee combat works. So you can just run away from Onyx Croman and just force your opponent to Benny Hill around the map if you really want to with these guys. But Fleshhounds don't get that same benefit, so they can be a little bit more vulnerable. I like to bring a couple, though, just in case. Just in case. Minotaurs need no explanation, you know. But Chaos Knight's also pretty good battlefield control tools, and they have those. They have high armor and good bronze shields on them, so they can survive Iron Hail volleys on the way in and get on top of these guys and just like sweep a backfield. Because once they get in, the thing that can wreck these guys is stuff that keeps them from getting into combat. Once they're in combat, they're going to do pretty nicely for themselves, and they got a lot of attention this game and still got 1,000 value. So yeah, I mean, I think that's going to be it for this one, guys. I hope you all have enjoyed this battle. I certainly did while I was playing it. It was an absolute hellacious experience in the best possible way, having to just sweat from wire to wire to grind that game out. And very, very thankfully, I was able to chew through the sheer numbers of Grand Cathay. I mean, you can see, you know, getting significantly outnumbered here, but you know, that's the benefits of playing the Blood God. Your individual units, man. Get them in the right situations, and they'll just tear everything to pieces. So, yeah. See you later, guys. GG's. Peace out.